on your table. You should have a card that looks like this, probably a little smaller. And what I want to do is experiment with what happens when you meet people and you don't ask questions you typically do. So when you meet someone for the first time, what questions do you typically ask?
How are you doing?
Where are you from? How you doing? What do you do? What's your name?
What are you having for lunch?
What are you having for lunch?
Where's the bathroom?
Where's the bathroom? So this is interesting, right? Because how many of you have played with ChatGPT in the last several months? Anybody AI stuff? No? Oh, all right. So this is super interesting to me. When we pair up with somebody's lifetime of ungoogleable experience, we pull out of our 8-pound block that lives on the top of our head. We're like, I don't know you. You have a whole lifetime of experience. How are you? Where are you from? What do you do? We ask one of the same 4 to 5 questions nearly every single time we meet somebody. And so not bad or good, just interesting. And so I want to do an experiment with what happens when we meet each other and we don't ask those questions. And so what I'd love for you to do is grab one of these cards. I'll make sure I hook you up with cards. Grab one of these cards, and really simply we're going to do a question swap. Have you ever done this? So you're going to pair up with somebody who you haven't met. You're going to ask the question on your card to them. You'll listen to their response. They will ask you the question on their card. They'll hopefully listen to your response. And then after that, ready? After that, you're going to swap cards, toss your hand in the air, signaling that you're looking for somebody new to pair up with. And so you can have as many swaps as you would like. All right? If you're in a really good conversation, you can stay there the whole time. Otherwise, when you've asked your question, swap cards, toss your hand in the air, signal that you're looking for a new person. I'm not going to give any other framing than that, just an experiment in what happens when we infuse a bunch of questions that weren't already in the room. All right? Go ahead and grab a card and pair up with somebody and ask them the question on your card. Go for it. So here's what I'd like to do, and this is what I'm going to introduce is a lens. In other words, I want to give you all a pair of glasses. And I would love for you to put that pair of glasses on, and we're going to do a second round of this experiment. Because a good scientist has a control group, which is just like, here's a bunch of new questions, good luck. And then experiment number 2 is like you add in a variable, and you see what changes. And so I'm going to do this for this particular exercise, but because this is also like part facilitation training, where I'm inviting you to step into my shoes also, because many of you are in my shoes sometimes, right? One of my favorite ways to go deeper with any exercise is to just add a second round where you inject or introduce some new element to it. Whether that's like a fun new rule or an idea, something for people to think about or have top of mind while they go into that second round. So the lens that I want to toss out is just this idea that there is magic in the second question. So you meet somebody, right? You ask them, how are you, where are you from, whatever. But the magic is in the second question asked. Now, kids between the ages of 2 and 5, how many questions do kids ask per day? A trillion. A lot. 300. On average, we actually researched this. On average, kids between the ages of 2 and 5 on a daily basis ask 300 to 400 questions per day. There's a study done in the UK, worked out to roughly every 2 minutes and 36 seconds all day, right? Now we grow up, we all get a little bit taller. How many questions do adults ask per day? 5, 12, 10, pretty accurate. On average, adults ask 6 to 12 questions per day. Now here's the nuance that I want to introduce. I'm going to give you some tools that if like there were no cards in the room, that would increase your chances of creating a really good conversation with somebody, even if you identify as an amazing conversationalist. I'm going to give you some ideas and some tools to even crank that up a little bit more. Right now, though, I just want you to tune into following up. So you're going to ask the person a question on your card, and the magic of a second question, no matter how badly you want to jump in and respond with like, ooh, 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 I'm a scuba diver too, right? No matter how much you want to jump in and share your own experience, the lens is push yourself in this experiment to respond to what your partner has said in a sentence that ends in a question mark. In other words, ask a question rooted in your natural curiosity. Some of you did this naturally just now, and now you're going to be doing it with an extra layer of intention. So as you're listening, be paying attention to what are you naturally curious about, what this person is saying, and then follow up with that 1 second question. That 1 second question, I probably should rephrase that. All right, that's the lens, and I just want you to notice what goes on with that. All right, in a little bit, I'll stop you with a wave perhaps, and we'll switch gears. Go for it. All right. If you can hear me, wave. Hello. All right. So in a minute, I'm going to invite you to sit down, but you have one task. And once we sit down, I'm going to ask you one of my absolute favorite questions. That is one of those like facilitator, educator, tuck it in your back pocket, magical in lots of scenarios. And I'll explain why. But first, I just want to ask it to you. Before you sit down, you have one task, which is give high fives to at least 3 people you connected with. Go. How many of you just had a conversation that you likely never otherwise would have had unless you came here? Yeah, that's it. So this is kind of like, oh, everybody raised their hands. It's like actually a pretty low bar, right? Because there's a lot of questions in here and a lot of random people. So there's lots of random combinations. So raising the bar a little bit, how many of you just had a conversation and connected with someone that you're like, I really am glad that I had that chat or connected with that person? Yeah, okay. And I could keep raising the bar, right? All the way until like, how many of you just got married with somebody in this room, right? Not the goal. Oh, you just got married though? Look at Joey. Congratulations, Joey. Yeah. And this is one of the things that I've just observed in conversation. I used to have a real weird job working with an organization called World in Conversation. And my job for several years was to sit down in a group about this size and have conversations about really soft, fluffy topics like long-term conflicts, race relations, politics, gender, etc. for 90 minutes with the sole purpose of skipping headlines and just seeking understanding from humans. And after about 500 of those dialogues, facilitating 500 of those 90-minute dialogues was like a PhD in humanity, right? There were conversations where I had somebody who's grew up in rural North Carolina, half their family was in the KKK, and somebody who grew up going to a 98% black school in New York. And they're in the same room talking about race relations. Nobody threw a chair, and at the end of the conversation, they looked at each other and said, dude, this is a quote, dude, you're just like me, right? And it's one of the things that has made me so passionate about simply conversation. Another part of my background is in adventure education, experiential ed, get out, move around, do stuff, and I love that, right? I love that lane of work. I think it's so amazing for the brain to be active and moving. And I also know that a single conversation with somebody can change somebody's mind. And so that's a really powerful thing to wield as a facilitator. And so I love this idea of connection within content. A facilitator friend named Jan Keck introduced this idea. So I'm all about connection before content, but this idea of connection within content, of actually, as you're playing, weaving in moments of depth and conversation and realness with each other. So, my favorite question, one of my favorite questions, is on the back there. What struck you about those conversations? Or a more English second language friendly version, what'd you notice about those conversations? So I want for 10 seconds, total quiet, just think of your own response. So rewind the tape. You just had a series of conversations. What struck you or what'd you notice about those conversations? And then in a minute, I'm going to ask you to popcorn out some responses. What struck you? What'd you notice about those conversations? All right, go ahead and popcorn a few out, and I'll just echo them back. What'd you notice?
We all have stories.
We all have stories, and lots of them. Yeah. What else?
It was easy to get deep.
It was easy to get deep. Yeah, kind of
Yeah, it was real.
dropped in. It felt real,
Authentic.
genuine, authentic. Commonalities between people. Similar commonalities, similar. You said that at the same time, which is why we're laughing over here. That's amazing. Commonalities and similar interests. Beautiful. You care about someone real quickly. So this, I call this, when I say deep conversations or depth, I don't mean like, let's all tell secrets we've never told anyone. What I mean is, when you haven't met a person, they're actually 2D. All they are is like the angle that you have them, like this is what you see. And then you find out a story and it adds a little bit of depth to them. And they become 3D. And then another story. And then another moment and an opinion and an experience. And you watch them participate, right? And it just adds depth. And all of a sudden it's a little bit harder to get angry at them. Because you see these other dimensions of their life, right? So real quick, because again, I'm inviting you to put on my shoes throughout today as well. One of the reasons this question, what struck you or what did you notice about that experience, is one of my absolute favorites, is notice how none of your answers were about what you talked about. None of your answers were about the content of what you were talking about. It was one layer beneath that, which is the process. So it was like the themes, and it was genuine and authentic. And so when I have in a group, a bunch of people call out, it was genuine, authentic, talking about commonalities. What I am doing is actually setting the tone for culture. You're setting the tone and saying this space is authentic and genuine and fill in the blank, right? Because that question asks about process, not content. And the other reason I like it is I like easy, I'm lazy, and so I like easy, cheap wins. And so what struck you or what'd you notice works in almost any context. You could like apply it to almost any scenario, and if you're like, I don't know how to debrief what's just happened, like whoop, peel back. What struck you or what did you notice about that conversation? I don't think that area likes me. So believe it or not, we already have a couple titles of videos that maybe you'll see on the internet at some point. And so one of them that we just did is this is the best in-person connection experiment / group activity. I don't know if you'd click on that on YouTube or not, but I would say that what we just did was a connection experiment. Let me give you a couple lenses to make it what I believe actually is the best, which is, so this question swap thing, for those of you who don't have context, this little deck of cards are called We Connect cards, and I created them 10 years ago. I created one deck for myself as I was leading adventure programs for teenagers, and I needed to get them to connect, and it looked awfully awkward. And so I just asked myself, what could I put in between these two people to accelerate that? And so I created one deck for myself with zero intention to create a second deck. And now I order them in batches of 20,000 decks. It was like they spread all over. They're being used in schools, organizations, all over. And so at the end, spoiler alert, you'll get a whole bunch of, sorry, not a free deck, a free link to a whole bunch of free resources. So a lot of the stuff that I'll use today, you can scan this, you can get a link. There's a free printable version, so you can print infinite amounts. And then for those of you who are like, I need the cards, Caleb and Robert and the team asked me to bring some, so there are some in the back also. Still, we've only done a connection experiment or activity. I don't think it was the best. Here are two framings, which normally I'd share at the beginning of the exercise, that I think elevate this exercise, which is, ideally, when you walk in the room, I would hand you a pair of funky tech glasses that would highlight the exact right person for you to talk to, and then above their head would be a question that would be like, ask this person this, you're going to win the conversational lottery. Like, this is the person you needed to meet. They've solved the problem that you have right now. Like, chat with this person. Unfortunately, those glasses don't exist. And so what I'd like to think is that as facilitators, we try to design experiences that are the next best thing, that we get people into the right conversations with really good people. And so to make that happen, you've got to have choice and autonomy in the types of conversation you're having. And so with these cards, you'll notice there's 3 colors. Green cards tend to be fun and light. Green questions tend to be fun and light. Green cards, maybe not so fun and light. Green questions tend to be fun and light. Purple questions encourage some level of self-reflection. So they're the kind of question that when somebody asks you, you might need 5 seconds of dead quiet because you've never actually answered that question. Your neural pathways in your brain have never eked out the answer to one of those questions. And I love that because that is actually the definition of learning, right? Is that your brain is eking new neural pathways and coming up with stuff that you haven't come up with before. And then blue cards tend to be a little bit deeper. So they're the kind of questions like, what is one thing life is teaching you right now? You usually wouldn't roll up to a bus stop and turn to somebody and say, what is one thing life is teaching you right now? It's like, woo, little much, right? You see? Didn't like that. And so the first way that you have choice if you're leading this exercise is, as you invite people to pair up, is if you're not in a blue card kind of mood, you can just duck and cover and find somebody with a green card to chat. So yeah, you can choose the color. There's a color code there. Much deeper and closer to the, for me, the core of like our humanity, and one of my favorite features of questions is you have, and this is true for the rest of today, you have 100% choice and autonomy in how you answer any question. Right? So you could ask me, what are you curious about right now? And I could say, honestly, I'm curious what it will take to make Caleb let go of the mic thing and for him to just be cool with it. Where's Caleb? I love you, Caleb. I'm curious, like, so that's kind of a playful, that's a true answer, but it's like, you know, it's there. I could also say, what is making me curious right now is what saves, this is like a weird niche thing, but my honest answer right now is what saves people from going crazy when they retire? And so I'm like, I'm just curious about that right now. So people who are close to retirement, who have been retired for many years, I'm like, what makes you like retirement and not go crazy, right? This is something I'm curious about. So 2 answers, very different responses. And so to any given question, there are many, many, many answers. And so I think as a facilitator, one of the most powerful things you can do when you prompt a conversation is, and even if you give them one single question to answer, is ask them or remind them that they have 100% choice in how they answer any given question. All right?